listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome back, everyone, to our Flower Essence series. In today's episode, Justin and I continue exploring Dr. Edward Bach's 38 original remedies, focusing on how they support the emotional heart and our capacity for connection, empathy, and authenticity. In part 1, we looked at remedies for fear and uncertainty, the flowers that help us restore trust and courage when life feels overwhelming. Now in part 2, we'll turn our attention to the flowers that heal the heart's deeper layers, the wounds of isolation, oversensitivity, and energetic disconnection. These remedies help us navigate the space between openness and self-protection, teaching us how to love without losing ourselves. Welcome to the show.
Hey, that's great to be back again here in part 2 and to continue talking about the flower essences. They are a point of interest and something that I firmly believe in, so I'm happy to be back talking about it and working our way through this series. It's kind of cool to do a series too.
Yeah.
We've done 2-parters, but we've never done a 3-parter.
Right. Taking it to the next level.
Right. It feels so much more official.
Yeah.
Doing a series like this. So I'm happy to be back. Always happy to be a part of the show and to be on here with you.
Yeah.
So I guess to begin, I'd like to ask, how did Bach view the link between our individuality and our capacity to connect with others?
So, Dr. Bach believed that emotional isolation and over-identification with others' feelings both stem from the same root, which is forgetting our own divine individuality. He saw true healing as a return to authenticity and inner freedom, where compassion can flow naturally without leaving us depleted. The flowers in this next group, or the next groups that we will be going over today, invite us to cultivate loving detachment, genuine presence, and clear energetic boundaries. They help support us in remembering that empathy does not require full merging, and that solitude does not mean just separation or isolation. So, for the first group today, we're going to talk about the remedies for insufficient interest in the present. There are 7 in this group, and they have the light green labels.
Okay.
So this group helps when a person is feeling disconnected from the here and now. Their attention and energy and spirit is not fully engaged with their life in this moment. So they may kind of drift into the past, into the future. This may leave them feeling kind of tired, lacking motivation, can even lead them to feel kind of emotionally numb.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, these remedies support presence, vitality, and renewed engagement with life itself.
We definitely use some of these pretty regularly.
Yeah, I do have a lot of direct experience with these. So here's some core themes for these that you can kind of sit with. So the core theme is a lack of interest in the present, which can arise for many reasons: fatigue, grief, boredom, mental overactivity, or even a desire to escape painful realities that we find ourselves in. The soul's light becomes dim. The person may appear dreamy, disinterested, or stuck in a repeating emotional pattern. These remedies within this group help the individual reconnect with their own life force. And this helps bring their attention back to the here and now and restore that natural curiosity and enthusiasm. So some key notes would be that might lead you towards this group of remedies would be that feeling checked out or disengaged, repeating patterns without understanding why you're doing that, living in the past or daydreaming too much about the future, lacking energy, motivation, or joy, mental restlessness or intrusive thoughts, emotional flatness or cycles of depression, and difficulty grounding spiritual insights into practical daily living.
I feel like almost anybody listening would be like, man, I have all of those at some point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And so they're all highly beneficial because I think, well, the whole thing with the essences is it's all of these things that all humans experience. I think sometimes when you hear the list, there's all these things. You're like, yes, I've dealt with that. Yes, I've dealt with that. Yes, I've dealt with that. And I guess that's why these are so beneficial and why it's so important for people to know about them, because you really combat all of these problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that
Yeah.
you think there's no help for.
Yeah, and with this group particularly, I mean, being present is like a whole spiritual practice. I mean, we wouldn't need Ram Dass's Be Here Now if this wasn't an issue. We wouldn't need teachers trying to guide us back to being in our bodies with our breath in this moment. It is easily to kind of have that like monkey mind, like ruminating and going into the past and nervous about the present and anxious about the future. I think it's probably more common than someone that's just naturally really present and content. And,
Yeah.
I think that takes a little bit of work, especially with our culture and like just like TV, and now our thoughts are just scattered and we have so much on our list that's kind of outside of our capacity, which might lead to like dissociation. It might lead to wanting to escape into a fantasy or something like that, right? Because it's kind of boring. Sometimes life is boring and mundane, and like it's hard to be present.
Yeah.
And so these remedies help, especially when it's necessary to be present in those moments. It's like going to be at our detriment if we're not paying attention, if we're, we've like now missed our child's entire game because we were daydreaming about next week.
Right.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
When like looking back, like, wow, I wasn't even paying attention. Like I watched that whole movie. I don't even know what it was about, or I read that whole chapter.
Oh yeah.
So I do think it's very common.
Yep.
So for this first remedy in this group, we'll talk about clematis. And the theme here is presence, creative embodiment, and awakening to life. So the core emotion with clematis is sort of that natural dreaminess, withdrawal, and disinterest in the here and now. So very much what we were kind of already talking about. So clematis is for those whose thoughts drift towards the distant and unseen. They are the dreamers, the visionaries. They live more in imagination than they do in the physical world.
Would you say that's more about the future?
Yeah. Yeah, because the next one we'll talk about is more centered around the past.
Gotcha. So you're already daydreaming about your vacation 6 months from now or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like Alice in Wonderland, like her sister's trying to, or her mother is trying to read to her, and she's just like off singing about her dream world,
Right.
And then wakes up and is like, oh. So there is kind of this unconsciousness with this remedy. It's like you're really not present. So these souls are gentle and creative, but they are often ungrounded and absorbed in fantasy or future possibilities rather than the reality that is before them. So in this state, the person may feel very sleepy, distracted, or indifferent to their daily responsibilities. They may be drawn more to the ethereal, but their spiritual or creative visions rarely take form. Like they can't bring them in to that more tangible reality. So, it's kind of like a waste of energy in a way, because like you have all these great ideas, but you can't turn them into anything. So it can start to feel kind of, exhausting or like maybe disempowering, because you're like, well, I have the ideas, but I have no idea, there's a certain practicality that's necessary in life.
Is the phrase for clematis have focus?
Yes.
That's what I thought. So it's to bring all of these random thoughts in and focus them in one direction to try to actually get something done or to manifest them.
Right. So in its, less balanced state, clematis can manifest as a sort of apathy, forgetfulness, or detachment from physical reality. These individuals may lose their motivation very easily, appear absent-minded, or retreat inward when life becomes overwhelming. So also Alice, like, in a world of my own. I mean, I can't not.
It is very Alice, yeah. Laying there just lazy in the flowers, daydreaming.
Right, right. So at its root, this state reflects a loss of grounding, a subtle disconnection between soul and body. When the spirit drifts too far from embodiment, creativity becomes potential without actual expression. And the soul naturally would long to anchor the root of the dream into form. So there is this, like, whether it's unconscious or not, sort of a yearning to actually make their dreams a reality. So when in a more harmonized state, clematis helps bring clarity, focus, and joyful participation in life. The individual becomes fully present and awake, and they are able to channel their imagination into creative action, like actually take the steps needed to make their vision come true. They learn to bring their inner visions into the material world through artistry, service, and inspired living. In this state, their sensitivity becomes their strength. The dreamer awakens not from their vision, but through it, discovering beauty in the tangible and sacred purpose within the everyday. So it really teaches us that the soul's creativity must be lived and not just stored in the imaginary realm.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going to feel satisfying if it's going to always feel out of our reach there. So just some keynotes to kind of wrap up and help people identify the state in its negative potential. The person drifts through life half asleep, unattached to what's happening around them. They're often idealistic, creative, or visionary, yet they avoid dealing with practical matters. Tends to daydream about a future where life will be better instead of acting in the now. May appear absent-minded, forgetful, or indifferent to details of daily living. Escaping into a fantasy or spiritual realms to avoid pain or boredom in the material world. The positive potential keynotes are grounded creativity, practical imagination, inspired realism, the ability to manifest dreams and ideals into concrete form, awakens to the beauty and potential of present life, clear awareness, alertness, and focused consciousness. The soul becomes fully incarnated, bringing spiritual vision into daily experience. And a key phrase for this would be from dreaming of life to living the dream.
I like that.
So as I was kind of studying this, it made me think of the generation that has Neptune in Capricorn, because Neptune is naturally very ethereal and dreamy and drifts and, is swimming in the spiritual waters, and that can feel kind of disorienting. If Neptune is not placed in a certain element or a certain sign where it can be used beneficially. But in Capricorn, there's drive, there's purpose. It's an earth sign, so they can literally turn dreams into reality. And so as I was reading that, I was thinking about, and I'm in that generation, so I reflect on it quite often, that I guess we're kind of the way showers of that energy embodied, of how can we take these spiritual concepts, but then turn them into something that's actually very useful, very practical, very grounded, and apply them. Because what are they if they're just floating around like concepts that can't be lived?
Right.
Because they're just so abstract in a way. But I feel like that particular generation is kind of holding that space and leading by example of like, no, here we go. This is how we are applying it. Trial and error. It's not that you get it right the first time, but it's that you're actually participating with life in a direct way.
Clematis, as I was listening to you describe it, it sounded like something that I really could have used while I was in school.
Yeah.
It's so much that feeling of sitting in class and your mind keeps wandering, and
Right.
you can't focus on the teacher. You can't focus on the worksheet you're doing. And it would be so beneficial while you're sitting there daydreaming in class. That was another thing besides the Alice. It was like just daydreaming in class. You can't focus.
Right. And then you wish you had later on.
Right.
Because now you're taking a test and you're like,
Oh, yeah, I wasn't listening.
what do you mean mitosis?
Right. Right. And so I shouldn't have been thinking about the weekend. I should have been focused on the teacher.
Right. I mean, I had to actually take some of this to study for this episode. Because
Right.
I was just like,
It's really good it sounds like it's perfect for students.
you're right. Absolutely.
Writing
Yeah.
a paper, studying, like when you just can't keep your mind on task, and it'll help bring it back.
Right. So Clematis looks to the future, dreaming of better times to come. But this next remedy, honeysuckle, dreams of the past and does not expect such happiness again. So the theme with honeysuckle would be living in the present. That's going to be the positive embodiment of it. Releasing the past and accepting change. But the core emotion is nostalgia, longing, and attachment to what once was. And if you think of the honeysuckle just in its, plant form, many of us think of our childhood because we go out and, find a honeysuckle. It was really magical and taste it, the sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
To me, honeysuckle naturally does embody that nostalgia of childhood. So honeysuckle speaks to the soul that lingers in yesterday. It is for those who feel anchored to the past, to the memories there, their old relationships, and the seasons of their life that can no longer be reclaimed. They often look back with longing, comparing the present to what has once been lost. And there's many people, as they get older, that just almost naturally fall into this state because they're no longer doing anything in the present that's worthwhile. So they're like, oh, I played football in high school, or I wore those white pants to the sushi bar. And they'll retell these stories. Sorry, that was a little too personal. And that's like the peak. That's the peak of their life. I'm so sorry. Okay. In this state, the mind drifts towards old loves, missed opportunities, or the better days that seem forever gone. They may resist change, struggle to move forward, or idolize what has passed. Though there can be warmth here, the energy is stagnant. The life force is caught in memory rather than motion. Honeysuckle gently looses the soul's attachment to time, and it helps the heart to release what cannot return, allowing transformation of sorrow into gratitude and remembrance into something that's inspiring for the present. So when unbalanced, honeysuckle creates emotional paralysis. The person may feel as if part of them still lives in a previous chapter of their life, and they are unable to root in the present moment. This can lead to melancholy, regret, or difficulty adapting to new circumstances. There is often a refusal, whether they're conscious of it or not, to accept endings. The past becomes both a comfort and a prison, which holds their spirit in repetition and prevents them from really stepping into the energy of renewal. The individual may fear that letting go of the past means that they're losing the love that was there. They're losing their sense of identity. So the honeysuckle essence reveals that holding on too tightly is what's preventing us from experiencing what is. So when we work with it, then we can now kind of transform that into this positive energy. So when harmonized, honeysuckle helps to restore vitality through presence. The individual begins to appreciate the continuity of life, understanding that love, wisdom, and meaning from the past live on as they live on. So we carry it with us, those lessons, that love, like it's still within us. And
Right.
and when we're keeping it present, now we can like teach the next generation. And so many of these people are so stuck in the past that I'll notice like grandparents aren't even paying attention to their grandchildren because they're so sad about like all the grief and the loss and the aging and and like I'm like, hello. Like there's so much beauty right here, but I do think it as we get older, this is definitely something that we might all fall into at times.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I see this play out in music. So many people, as they get older, they just stay cycling through the songs of their youth, and they don't go search for new music and create new memories. And instead, they just listen to the same albums they did when they were in high school,
Right.
and it transports them back, and they relive that over and over. And I certainly can too, and I have playlists designed for those eras when I do want to remember and go back. But I personally make it a habit to try to find new music and to continue, creating those connections in the present, so that I know that there is happiness and fun and joy happening now, and it's not all just about the songs or the memories and the experiences of those songs back 20 years ago. But I see so many people that don't do that. These are the songs when I was a kid. I'm just going to keep listening to it, and I'm stuck there.
Right.
Brings those same feelings up over and over. And like you said, it's kind of a prison, even though it's a musical prison. But they're just stuck
Right.
there.
It can show up in many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about this with even like animals. Like they might tend to do the same thing every day and like kind of lose their vitality over time. And then you bring a puppy in, and now they're they're more present. They're here. They're like, oh wow, this thing's biting my ear. I'm gonna have to react. Like they're in the moment more. And I feel like as we age, it's important to keep children around us and try to understand like their music and their interest, and watch some new shows that maybe you wouldn't have, just to sample something new.
Yeah.
So I feel like my kids help prevent me from this, because I absolutely would just still be watching all 90s romantic comedies and listening to Crazy Sexy Cool on repeat. But now I'm like listening to Boy of Uke and
Yeah.
watching Demon Hunters and
Right.
but I learn a lot more because I'm like, oh wow, this is a whole fresh perspective. Like I actually appreciate it. So I think it is kind of like keeping the younger generation alive. And I think in other cultures, grandparents and grandchildren, they're spending a lot of time together. And in our culture, sometimes there's a disconnect there. Like we send them off to like old folks' homes and they're just surrounded by other older people that are telling the same stories over and over and over again. And so it's almost easier to fall into that when they're not able to have that experience of, children who are some of the most present people around. I mean, they teach us presence all the time.
Right.
So it would be weirder for a child to be in this state.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know at what age it would even start happening. But it definitely probably doesn't happen very often to very young people. It's definitely, as you get older, this is going to be more and more.
Right. The nostalgia has to exist.
Right.
So some keynotes to summarize this, in the negative potential, the person dwells on memories, losses, or better times. Deep attachment to people, places, or experiences that are gone. They may resist change or growth out of sentimental attachment, feel homesick or emotionally anchored in what cannot return. The vitality of the present moment is lost in reflection or yearning. And the positive potential keynotes would be acceptance and integration of the past as part of one's evolution, the ability to live in the present with gratitude for what has been, freedom from regret, allowing energy to flow forward again, renewal, readiness for new experiences, and an openness to change. So a key phrase would be from living in memories to creating new ones.
I guess for young kids, this would be good if you had to uproot and move and you had to leave behind your friends in your old house.
Right. Like Inside Out a little bit, how she's reflecting in that movie.
Yeah.
She's old enough to have that nostalgia. She's had a transition.
Mm-hmm.
So now she has something to compare it to.
Right. And so it would help her be more present in her new school with her new friends around and not be so stuck on the place that she left.
Right. And so we'll talk about Walnut here soon, but they might be paired well together, like say Riley and Inside Out, because she's kind of craving that nostalgia because that feels safe. Like that's what feels familiar. But Walnut would be good because she's in a transition phase in her life, which there's a lot of uncertainty. It puts us in, a weird place energetically. And so when they're paired, that might help her be even more present and also more empowered to step into that next phase and try some new experiences out. Feel safe enough to do that, like protected.
Right.
In having those new experiences and like meeting her new team, because she does the hockey thing. So, right. Lots of movies in this as examples for this one.
That's just a good way to ground it and to relay it to somebody else.
Right, for sure. Which I'm going to do it again with this next remedy, Wild Rose. And one of the comparisons is Briar Rose, aka Sleeping Beauty. Oh. So because like the theme here is awakening enthusiasm and rekindling the engagement with life. And Sleeping Beauty, she's like sleeps through her whole life. There's an apathy with that. And with that apathy, one can sort of allow their will to fall asleep. So she becomes kind of a prime example of maybe the picture of Wild Rose. So there's apathy, resignation, quiet indifference towards life's unfolding, lassitude, and mental fatigue. So Wild Rose is the remedy for the soul that has grown tired of caring. It is not the sharp despair of grief, nor the bitter edge of depression, but a gentle giving up, drifting through days without expectation or resistance. The person in this state feels detached, listless, and quietly resigned to circumstance. They go through the motions of living, yet they feel little passion or sense of purpose. It is what it is becomes their silent refrain. And beneath the surface lies an unconscious surrender of the will to joy. Wild Rose helps reawaken that inner spark within us and reminds the soul that even though we may feel numb or uninspired, the current of life is still moving through us. It's just waiting to be felt again. So in the unbalanced Wild Rose state, the individual may seem peaceful, but they lack vitality. There's no specific great suffering. However, there's also no real delight in life either. So life may feel very colorless. They may have accepted this limitation, the stage they're in is final, and believe that nothing will truly change, so they just stop trying. They just stop seeking. This quiet withdrawal can manifest physically as low energy or a dullness, which can be seen as sort of a heaviness within their aura. Mm-hmm. The spirit has drifted from participation into passive endurance. They have forgot their soul's own birthright, which is to be, a creator, which is to experience joy, and to really find pleasure in the present moment. So when in a harmonized state, Wild Rose helps to restore engagement with life. So the heart begins to stir, to open, enthusiasm starts to return, and the person starts noticing beauty again. So, finding beauty in the small details, laughter, sunlight, the wind on their face, like those little things that we miss when we're numb.
Yeah.
And when you're in that state, I think you kind of just forget about it. It's almost like you've just accepted it so much that it's like, Maybe you watch a movie and you like sense it, but it almost makes me think of like Scrooge or something. Like it's so hard for him to even understand
Yeah.
that joy because he's so separated from it.
Well, I've got a good example from kind of an obscure movie, but it's another kids movie. The Emoji Movie, which is a very funny, weird movie. But the main character in that movie is the emoji meh. And he's supposed to be just, all the time. But he wants to be passionate. He wants to be happy, and he's filled with joy and everything. And everybody gets mad at him because he's supposed to just be the emotion of meh.
Right.
And the whole movie is him trying to break out of that because he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be filled with passion and lit up. And so that movie almost feels exactly like the transformation that Wild Rose gives you, because they want him to be the negative state, and he is on a journey to be the positive state.
Right.
And so he doesn't want to be meh. He wants to be all these other emotions.
Right. And we talk about polarity, and meh is just one side of that axis. So on the other side is great enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And so there's, we might move back and forth. And I think there's times in life, I think about like it's cold, it's winter, you can't leave your house. It's, and it is like more natural to not have much enthusiasm during some of those darker months.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live your whole life and it feels like you're in an inner winter,
Yeah.
and like you haven't had enthusiasm for years, and like things that used to light you up feel nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be some keys to kind of pay attention to. So the negative potential keynotes would be: the person moves through life mechanically, feeling no spark or joy. They have surrendered to circumstances, believing there's no point in trying. They are emotionally flat, neither happy nor deeply sad. They're just indifferent. Lacks initiative, motivation, or hope that things could ever improve. They may appear content on the surface, but inwardly they feel disengaged from a sense of purpose. And the more positive potential here would be, after working with the essence, reawakens interest in curiosity about life. Inner energy and joy begin to flow again, senses the beauty in small things, learns to participate actively in shaping personal destiny, and radiates quiet enthusiasm and openness to new possibilities. So we're going from quiet resignation to joyful participation in life. All right, the next one is Olive. And the theme with Olive is restoration, renewal, and the return of inner strength. So at its core, the emotion here is complete exhaustion after long effort, depletion of energy on every level. So Olive is for those who have reached the limits of endurance. This state arises when the body, mind, and spirit are completely drained, when every reserve has been used and there is nothing left to give. So this may follow a very prolonged illness. Caregiving, we think about like people that have to take care of like their parents aging. That might be like a 5-year process.
Right.
Might be a 10-year process, and it's just exhausting. It could be a time of emotional struggle or just a constant stage of, overworking where you just spent months trying to get this project complete and you're just exhausted from pouring from an empty cup. So the person feels empty, they're unable to continue, and even joyful things bring no response. Rest does not actually feel restorative at all, and the life force itself just feels totally extinguished. So Olive offers deep nourishment for the soul. It replenishes vitality through surrender and teaches that renewal begins when we release the need to push and allow divine energy to flow back in. So when I was studying the plant, I pulled this quote from Julian Bernard's book, and he said, constant cropping for thousands of years, the same trees in the same place, in the same soil even. No wonder the land is exhausted. So it's like, it's just always producing and it's like in the same soil. There's not a lot of time to replenish.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and you can see it show up in the state of this person. So in an unbalanced form, olive manifests as total depletion, physical fatigue, mental fog, emotional burnout. The person may feel detached from spirit and unable to draw energy from within. Sleep does not bring much relief, and even minor tasks just feel exhausting, like daunting. And the exhaustion often carries this deeper spiritual message, which is, the soul has been giving so much without receiving, that reciprocity in return. So the flow of energy has become one directional, and it's cut us off from its divine source. So olive is going to bring restoration by reopening the circuit between human effort and universal life force. When harmonized, olive restores a profound sense of peace, strength, and vitality. The person feels renewed from within and refreshed not only in body but in soul. And effort becomes ease, and the will to live fully returns. So I've definitely taken a lot of olive in my life, especially after my kids have been sick. If it's like when we get sick at different points, there was one where it was like all four of us got sick a week apart. And I was so exhausted. I was like very depressed, and I was just like, I can't, like, I was just barely getting through the day. And olive, I had to take it quite often because it was such a long stretch.
Right.
Really helped me, I guess, maintain kind of hope that like this is hard, but it will end. Yeah. And I just needed that support to actually get through that phase, which was more of an acute experience for me. But I've definitely met people who are just exhausted of life, and they've just been beat up so much, or they have a chronic illness that doesn't feel like it has like a resolution. So it can be easy to kind of fall into this, just, I'm exhausted. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel good again. So some key notes would be, utterly tired, drained, unable to summon interest in anything. Feeling heavy. Every effort demands more energy than is available to you. Feels empty, detached, worn out to the core. No joy or motivation left. And even rest or sleep brings little renewal. So we've all had those nights where we wake up just so tired and like it felt like we didn't sleep at all. Yeah. And then there's a whole nother day of that. And there's a whole nother day of that.
Oh, yeah. That's exhausting just thinking about that.
Yeah. So the positive potential would be gentle restoration of energy from an inner spiritual source. Strength returns naturally through stillness, deep rest, and trust in life's flow. And learning to balance doing with being. Vitality becomes serene rather than forced. Radiates calm endurance and quiet renewal that nourishes others as well. So we're going from exhaustion to a state of peaceful renewal. And maybe this isn't one that happens overnight. Maybe it's a remedy you have to take through that little window of time more regularly. But anytime I've taken it, I have stopped needing it at some point because it did kind of hold my hand to get to the other side. So the next remedy is white chestnut. And, with white chestnut, there's this core emotion would be persistent thoughts, worry loops, mental chatter that will not quiet. I took this last night.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had a song in my head that was replaying. I was thinking about this episode, and my brain was literally like replaying, like, oh, it could go this way, it could go that way. And we had watched Transformers, so there was some weird, like, robotic night undertones. And I was like, I can't get this Madonna song out of my head. And
what a wild combination.
It was terrible. I was like, turn it off. It's so loud. Turn it off.
Repeating and playing over.
So this remedy helped me in the night. So white chestnut is for those whose minds will not rest.
Everybody has that. Yeah. That is such a huge common problem.
Yes. Our thoughts are circling endlessly, replaying conversations, worries, or decisions that don't have a resolution. So even when we're in stillness, that inner dialogue continues. This state often follows stress, conflict, or emotional overactivity. And the mind becomes a spinning wheel seeking control through repetition. Like maybe if I just keep reimagining this scenario.
Ugh. It's probably never worked for anyone ever.
Yeah, it's a very airy remedy, like very mental. Though the thoughts may seem rational, they serve only to drain the energy and disconnect the person from presence. And white chestnut helps calm this constant inner voice, restoring clarity and quiet confidence. So, in its unbalanced form, the white chestnut state creates exhaustion of the nervous system. It is so true. The mind fixates on one concern or image, or sometimes three, because mine was Transformers, Madonna, and this episode. And just repeats it endlessly without progress. So this is a kind of rumination. It may feel involuntary, as though the person is trapped in their own thinking. And I think rumination is very common. I mean, just the other day, my son couldn't go to a party. And when it really hit him, I mean, it would not. So he's like cycling. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we are really caught up.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Caught Up was the Madonna song in my head. We are really caught up on this party thing. And it was like, even though rationally I'm like, that ship has sailed.
Right.
He could not turn it off. So we did the white chestnut to just kind of help him accept, and see a different night. And then he was like, actually, I'm kind of glad I didn't go to the party, because now I'm doing this, and like there was like some cool game launch that next day he would have missed. And but it's so cool to see the effects that just hit that quickly, where you're like, okay, that was definitely the right one.
That's definitely one of those remedies that you can take and see effects on it pretty quickly.
Right. Absolutely. So when harmonized, white chestnut brings stillness, mental order, and serenity. The thoughts start to settle naturally into clarity, and the person can think constructively when needed, and then rest and inner quiet become accessible when that task is complete. So this essence clears the channel between mind and the higher self, allowing insight to replace worry. The person feels mentally refreshed, centered, and at ease. Sleep deepens, focus strengthens, and the sense of being stuck in the head starts to dissolve. So some keynotes to think of that might pull you towards this remedy is the mind's running in circles, you're repeating worries, you're repeating arguments, you're having imagined conversations or imagined podcast episodes. Even when tired, your thoughts keep spinning without rest or resolution. You might have difficulty concentrating or sleeping due to constant mental noise. The person may appear calm outwardly while inwardly trapped in unending rumination. The flow of energy to the heart and intuition become blocked by restless thinking. And the positive potential would be that the mind becomes clear, calm, and receptive. The thoughts flow in harmony with intuition and inner guidance. The ability to focus on the present moment becomes an option through quiet awareness. Peaceful detachment replaces mental struggle. Inspiration arises more naturally. So we're coming from restless thinking into quiet clarity of the mind. So talking about Alice in Wonderland, I just want to be like, mustard for this next one. Only those big fans will get that.
It would be appropriate, I think.
So the core emotion with mustard is the sudden deep gloom or melancholy that does not have a known cause. So kind of like we were talking about aspen, with no known cause for the fear or the anxiety, this is similar, but it's focused more around depression. So it's just depression that comes out of nowhere. At the end, you're like, you're safe, everything's great. Why am I suddenly depressed? That is a key sign of mustard. So we talked about gentian. So gentian has, kind of a depressed undertone as well, but it's a known depression. Mm-hmm. So it's like we can understand it. It's like, oh, I've been really sick, or I lost my best friend, and it makes a lot of sense.
And that that was another one we gave our son, when he couldn't go to the party, was gentian, because it was a setback. Like, he wasn't able to go. And he
Right.
knew exactly, we had a very
Right.
specific
We
reason.
knew what was going on.
We knew there was a specific reason for his depression.
Right.
And so it wasn't just broad. It was like, this is it. So we gave him gentian for that purpose.
Right. So we would do mustard if it was, just unknown suddenly, you're just in despair.
Just down today.
So it can address this sort of mysterious period when darkness descends without any warning. There's no clear reason for the sadness. The world just kind of suddenly starts to feel heavy, colorless. It's almost like this cloud just kind of overtakes you. In this state, nothing seems to reach or comfort this person. The mind cannot reason this deep despair away. It is as if the light of spirit has been temporarily eclipsed, leaving the heart to wander in the shadow. So mustard offers illumination from within, and this helps reestablish that connection to the higher self, reminding the soul that the light has never truly gone out. This is just a phase, and the clouds will pass and the light will come again. I pulled this quote from Julian Bernard's book that we talked about a lot last time. So mustard is an opportunist pattern of interference, a form of possession which takes up residence only because of the weakness of the host. And I thought it was interesting thinking of it like possession, because it's like coming out of nowhere. Suddenly you've got this dark cloud on you. So, it makes it even more important to like keep your vital energy strong, and like to also be able to understand like this is a phase and try to process logically, so that you're not so susceptible, to this kind of gloomy influence that might be more of a collective thing at that time. And now you're like, well, I don't know why I'm depressed, but
and we're all suffering with that on and off these days, because the collective energy is so through the roof. There's a lot of ups and downs and tragedies and chaos and panics, and so that's definitely something that I think we all struggle with from time to time, especially recently.
Yeah. So this gloom can feel isolating, as though life has lost all its meaning. It can also accompany a period of deep spiritual growth, so kind of maybe like a dark night of the soul. So this sort of in-between stage where, the old light is starting to fade right before a new awareness is starting to step in. And it can be kind of related to like maybe that readjustment of like a higher vibrational energy. And so it's almost like that. It's like a purging of like, this is not serving me. I need to let these old patterns go. But in that moment, we might just experience it as a deep sense of emptiness. So when it harmonized, mustard restores serenity, clarity, and inner radiance. The clouds start to part and the light returns. Some key notes is feels overtaken by darkness that arrives uninvited and leaves just as mysteriously, disconnected from joy, purpose, or interest in life while the mood lasts. No outer circumstance explains this sorrow. The person may retreat inward, waiting helplessly for the heaviness to pass. The rhythm of the soul feels eclipsed. The inner sun is hidden. Positive potential, inner lights shining steadily again, gains spiritual depth and understanding through the experience of that darkness, finds quiet faith in the cyclic nature of emotion and renewal. And so with this, we're moving from this inner eclipse to radiant clarity around it. All right, and so the last one in this series of insufficient interest in the present is chestnut bud. So this actually comes from the same tree as white chestnut, but this remedy is created from the bud, while white chestnut is made from the flowers.
Okay, that's interesting.
So within the closed bud lies the potential for all of the new growth and development. And so they make it from that potential energy that's held within the bud. So the core emotion is when we're repeating the same mistakes over and over again, failing to learn from the experience, and inattention to life's lessons. So chestnut bud speaks to those who move quickly through life, but without much reflection. They repeat the same things over and over again, the same patterns, the same choices, because that deeper lesson within them has not been integrated. So in the book I was reading, it compared this remedy to like a game of snakes and ladders, and they're just like moving forward, and then they're going back to the same person that,
Oh, yeah.
same relationships. And if it's not the same person, it's someone that's basically the twin of that person, or they stay in same kind of job forever. And then they get a new job, but it's like still the same job, basically, with just a new name.
Right.
So they may rush ahead into a new experience before they fully process the old experience. They may say, I cannot believe I did that again, yet find themselves in the same emotional or situational loop. And this remedy is not about intelligence or ability, but consciousness, the capacity to pause, observe, and absorb the wisdom from their experiences. So in an unbalanced state, this can appear as carelessness or forgetfulness. The person may seem eager, impatient, or distracted, and constantly looking ahead rather than within. They may move on quickly from discomfort or disappointment without understanding what it came to teach.
I wonder if you took this regularly, if it would help you if you were trying to break an addiction.
Oh yeah, I definitely think so.
You're trying to quit smoking cigarettes or
Because
drinking.
it would help you get to like, why am I doing that in the first place?
Right. And especially if you wanted to quit, but you couldn't. And then each time you started up again,
You relapse.
you were bummed. Mm-hmm. You're like, why did I have that drink, or why did I have that cigarette? You could take that and it would help the addiction slowly work its way out, maybe.
Yeah. So when harmonized chestnut bud brings clarity, mindfulness, and genuine growth, the individual becomes a conscious participant in their own evolution, and they are able to recognize patterns as they arise and shift them with their awareness. Rather than reacting automatically, they begin to respond with understanding. So those mistakes become teachers. They're able to integrate the wisdom from them, because we don't want to ruminate on the mistake either. We want to spend some time thinking about it, process it, and say, well, I'm not going to do that again, because I learned maybe the hard way there. So keynotes, persons rushing into action without reflecting on their past experience. They're repeating the same errors. They are learning slowly from life's lessons because their attention is already fixed on what's next. They are avoiding self-observation. That's the key to me. They're wanting to move on rather than understand what just happened.
Right.
They appear forgetful, distracted, or inattentive to personal growth cycles. So I feel like this would be a state where, looking at your natal chart and seeing what transits are going on, you can see the cycle. It's like, oh, this makes sense. Why this old cycle was repeated, because this transit is, testing me.
Right.
With something old, and I'm going to pay more attention and not fall into the old pattern because I have integrated what I learned from the last time. So there's other things I think that can help us kind of witness the cycle that we're in, and maybe be a little more conscious around like taking our time with integrating the wisdom learned from that cycle. So the positive potential would be awareness becomes sharp and reflective. The lessons are seen and integrated with ease. The person observes themselves objectively and grows consciously from each experience. Life becomes a continuous process of evolution and learning rather than repetition. So we're going from repeating old patterns to learning through awareness. So this next section of remedies is based around loneliness. There are 3 remedies in this category, and they have the purple label. So this group is going to support those who feel separate, isolated, or unable to connect harmoniously with others. These states can sometimes arise from heightened individuality, sensitivity, or a mismatch between inner rhythm and the pace of the surrounding world. So rather than treating loneliness as simply being alone, this group is working to help restore a sense of inner connection and belonging to oneself, to others, and to life itself. So loneliness in Bach's system isn't always about physical solitude. It's the feeling of being apart from others, misunderstood, or unable to share one's inner world. So this can come from moving at a different pace than others, or needing personal space, or, feeling frustrated by how others are relating to them. So these remedies can help bring balance, self-expression, and empathy and openness, allowing us to be both true to ourselves and also in harmony with others. So the first one in this group is water violet. And the core emotion will be prideful independence, emotional distance, and withdrawal from others. So water violet is for those who prefer solitude. They tend to carry dignity and composure, yet they often stand apart from others. They are very wise, calm, self-contained, but they rarely burden others with their troubles. Therapists and people like that tend to fall into this group because they can take on a lot, but they don't necessarily they don't want to share their woes and problems.
Right.
Like they're the ones that you come to, but it's not necessarily reciprocated in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So beneath the serenity that they kind of carry, there can be a loneliness and an unspoken sense of separation. These souls often feel different or misunderstood, and they may keep to themselves. This is not out of coldness, but from a sensitivity and self-protection. So when they're out of balance, this reserve becomes isolation, and the heart is guarded. The emotions are kept more private. Their independence can turn into pride, and their serenity into silence. So I kind of think of this as like a retreating, a room of one's own, like retreating to your tower, and it's actually a way to kind of protect yourself. Not like you don't love other people, but it's, the loneliness comes from feeling like you can't fully communicate your feelings with other people without potentially maybe depressing them or,
right.
So it's actually, I don't feel like it's quite so selfish, but it becomes detrimental to them because now they're not connecting. So in its unbalanced form, water violet states manifests as emotional distance or quiet superiority. The person may avoid intimacy, believing others would not understand or share feelings. In sharing these negative experiences might diminish their grace. They might have to,
Right.
people might see them, in that more vulnerable layer.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of the Goo Goo Dolls song Iris.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the world to see me because I don't think that they'd understand.
Right. So there is kind of that, if I share, will they even hear me? Will they even be able to fully process this? So what's the point?
Grasp the level of my feeling.
Right. But then you feel isolated because now you know.
Yeah, because you're alone. You're not letting yourself be seen.
So when in a harmonized state, water violet brings gentle warmth and approachability. The person remains calm and self-possessed, but now allows love and friendship to flow freely. So they begin to enjoy simple human connection. Things like conversation, laughter, touch become more accessible without this fear of intrusion or a loss of their dignity. So their quiet wisdom becomes a gift that uplifts others rather than separating them from others. Some keynotes would be quiet, capable, dignified, and self-reliant, yet emotionally distant. Feels different or apart from others, preferring solitude to social contact. They may seem proud, reserved, or unreachable, though often this is from their sensitivity rather than arrogance. They may find it difficult to express warmth or ask for help, choosing to bear burdens alone. Positive potential would be inner dignity, balanced with warmth and openness, the ability to share wisdom and serenity without superiority, connecting naturally with others while maintaining a healthy independence. So we're moving from proud solitude to quiet companionship with this one. This next one is impatience. But very much connected to impatience. So this one's easy to kind of identify.
Which, when I first heard of it, I wouldn't have necessarily put it under the remedy for loneliness.
Right. It took me a minute to figure this out.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it because I did eventually wrap my head around why is this in the loneliness category.
Yeah.
So the core emotion here is irritability, restlessness, and frustration with the pace of others or life itself. Impatience is for those whose minds and actions move faster than the world around them. These souls are quick in thought and motion. They're often very intuitive, they're efficient, they are independent. Yet when others move more slowly, they may feel frustration, they may get agitated, or have this sort of strong urge to just withdraw and do it alone. Right? So it's actually this lack of patience with others that isolates them, because they're like, I'm just going to do it myself.
Right. Get out of the way. I'll do it.
Yeah, I definitely thought of Ludacris a little bit, as I was saying.
Nice.
And it's like, that might feel kind of pokey for those around them. Like, oh, every time I'm around her, she's like, it might feel, I don't know, it might not feel comfortable to the people you're working with if you are so impatient that you're like rushing them or making them feel inadequate.
Right.
So I think
you're not doing it right. Let me do it.
Right. So I think that the loneliness might also come from the fact that they're almost like pushing others away with this sort of pokey energy that they have. And I thought that this was interesting because, of course, there's a flower essence that corresponds for each zodiac sign, but this one made so much sense to me as an Aries. With that patience being such a key theme. And also the cell salt that corresponds with Aries is caliphosphin. There's a lot of mental activity. Aries is connected to the head, so there's a lot of mental activity, and the shadow of this is it can lead to burnout, and that lack of patience can feel exhausting. That the person themselves is now exhausted from their own impatience because that restlessness is like a part of that, just sort of that constitution. So definitely people that have heavy Aries energy in their chart could benefit from using this. And sometimes I forget about it because I don't see my impatience as negative until I'm like, wow, everyone hates me right now. Because I'm just like rushing. I'm like, we got to get this done. And like, I'm so driven. And that can be a good thing.
Sure.
When approached carefully, so when in an imbalanced state, impatience energy becomes very sharp and brittle. The person may interrupt and hurry others or just complete the task themselves rather than waiting. They feel most at ease when they are in control of time and when the events are happening as quickly as they can think of them. I am so bad about this. Aries, Sun, and Mercury in the third house. Like, I'm coming up with ideas way faster than I can create them. And the people around me are just like, haven't even heard me finish the sentence, and I'm like, okay, on to the next thing. Right? So when in harmonized state, impatience brings calm, flow, and deep compassion for the differing tempos of life. So the person begins to feel the beauty of stillness and the gentle wisdom of patience, which is something that's taken me a while to learn. Their energy softens and they listen without tension, and time no longer feels like an enemy. They move more gracefully, more efficiently, but without strain, and others feel more at ease in their presence. So it's kind of like the true flip side of that. But the restlessness actually does lead them to feel isolated. So keynotes is quick in thoughts and action, easily frustrated by those who work or respond slowly. There might feel like an inner pressure. They might prefer to do things alone to get them done right. There's difficulty relaxing or flowing with the rhythm of others. They may become abrupt, sharp, and irritable under stress. The fast vibration of their energy isolates them, creating loneliness even amid company. And if you think about Aries too, Aries is the most independent of all the signs. It's like the core theme of Aries is like, I am. It's all about them. And so it actually can take time to work with that energy to sort of balance the polarity of me versus others. And how can I show up and be my true self, be true to me, while also being compassionate and letting others be here too. Because that can be very isolating and lonely. So the positive potential is calm, gentle understanding of others' rhythms and differences, natural grace and patience within relationships, quick mind and energy that now flow in harmony with compassion. So we're going from restless haste to gentle presence.
It does make sense when you hear it explained how it falls into loneliness, but you have to explain kind of what type of impatience it is there.
All right. So the third and last one in this loneliness section is Heather. And the core emotion here is self absorption, loneliness, and excessive need for attention or validation. So Heather is for those who feel compelled to talk and share and seek company, not out of vanity, but from this deep fear of being alone with their own thoughts. These individuals often speak at length about their concerns, rarely pausing to listen. Their presence can feel overwhelming, as if they are energetically reaching outward, grasping for reassurance or acknowledgement. So in this state, the person feels disconnected from the inner self. Loneliness is driving their urge to fill space with words or activity, hoping connection will come from the outside. Yet this constant outward reaching can push others away, deepening the very isolation that they are trying to escape from. So Heather helps the soul find peace and stillness and companionship with its own inner light. So from that place of calm, true connection becomes possible. So unbalanced state of Heather will manifest as overtalking, self-centered conversation, nervous restlessness around silence. The individual may feel unseen or unheard unless they are constantly expressing themselves. When harmonized, Heather brings genuine empathy, listening, inner peace, and the person no longer seeks constant validation, but they feel whole and self-contained. They speak from authenticity rather than need, and their words uplift others rather than drain the energy. So some of the key notes for Heather is feels empty or anxious when not in contact with others, constantly seeking company or conversation, talks mainly about personal problems and they're rarely able to listen deeply. The need to be seen or heard creates a one-sided exchange that can push others away. Underlying this behavior is a fear of emptiness and of losing identity without interaction. Loneliness becomes self-perpetuating as others tire from the constant self-reference. So the positive potential would be the capacity to listen, empathize, and truly share with others. Finding inner peace from self-sufficiency, no longer depending on others for validation. Connection becomes mutual and nourishing rather than demanding. Warm, caring presence that uplifts and comforts those around them. So we're going from that needy, self-focused energy to that compassionate understanding that comes when working with this remedy. So this next group of remedies are all about oversensitivity to influences and ideas, and they have the dark green label. So these remedies are for those who easily absorb the moods, emotions, or the expectations of others. These souls are often very gentle, empathetic, and finely attuned to their surroundings, but this sensitivity can sometimes lead them to overwhelm, inner conflict, or just an overall loss of boundaries. This group helps transform that vulnerability into strength through this awareness, which allows them to stay open-hearted without feeling unguarded.
Mm-hmm.
So oversensitivity, in Bach's understanding, it's not a flaw, it's more of a sign of a refined nervous system and a perceptive soul. However, when the sensitivity is unbalanced, it can lead to emotional confusion, defensiveness, and exhaustion. These remedies in this group can help a person to remain centered in their very own truth, even amid outside pressures. They bring emotional protection, discernment, and their own integrity, allowing their sensitivity to become a gift rather than a burden. So some keynotes that might help you to kind of narrow down if this is the group you need are going to be feeling drained or emotionally affected by other people's moods, difficulty setting healthy boundaries, trying to please everyone or avoid conflict in general, struggling to adapt to change or external influences, emotional turbulence, which can be caused by fear of rejection or betrayal, internalizing negative energy or criticism, becoming too guarded, resentful, or disconnected from love. So the first one in this next group is agrimony. And the core emotion for this is going to be based around inner turmoil, hidden behind a very cheerful, sunny disposition. But this is a mask that they're wearing. There is avoidance of pain through distraction or humor. So they're kind of like diverting your attention to something more joyous, even though they might be really sad underneath, or they might be going through a hard time. These are kind of those people that like want to crack a joke in their therapist's office instead of maybe addressing where their suffering really is. So
that might be hard to diagnose for somebody.
it is.
That's almost something they have to self-diagnose.
It's one of the hardest remedies to pinpoint in a consultation. It might actually take a couple consultations and kind of peeling back some layers before you start to really see
that's what they're doing,
that it's a mask, and that they're actually, really sad or disheartened underneath.
Yeah.
I was reading about this one, and they were saying, like, even when they're in the hospital, like the nurses and doctors always love them, and like they're always making light of their problems. So agrimony speaks to those who keep their suffering very private. Outwardly, they appear lighthearted, sociable, composed, the ones who make you laugh, who brighten the room. But behind that smile lies restlessness and unease. These souls often fear conflict or discomfort, so they hide distress beneath positivity, busyness, and charm. So in this state, the person might avoid silence and solitude, as both might expose what they are not wanting to feel. They may downplay some of their emotions, turning quickly to humor, work, or external stimulation to escape from really feeling that pain. When unbalanced, the agrimony state can manifest as tension that is disguised as cheerfulness. The person may suppress deep anxiety, grief, or guilt, fearing vulnerability or confrontation. This repression can lead them to sleeplessness, addictions, or physical tension. So the addiction comes from that wanting to kind of escape. So they tend to turn to alcohol, because when you drink wine, you're suddenly like the life of the party. But as we all know, that's actually a depressant. So they'll go home and be sad. So the physical tension comes from the fact that the body is holding what the heart and the mind are trying to avoid. There's often a hidden longing for freedom and the desire to live without pretense, to speak truthfully without fear of losing love and harmony. The essence reveals that avoidance of pain only prolongs that pain. While honest acknowledgement opens the door to release, agrimony shows that we cannot heal what we refuse to feel.
I like that.
So when in a harmonized state, agrimony brings serenity, authenticity, and emotional transparency. The smile remains, but now it's actually genuine. It's real, based on their own true joy, rather than kind of shielding and protecting them against unwanted pain or suffering. So the individual begins to learn to face their feelings gently, maybe revealing or discovering that vulnerability is actually going to help invite deeper, real connection. And that true peace comes from integration and not avoiding what's really happening. So the humor becomes more of a gift versus like a defense or a mask. So in the positive state, agrimony radiates warmth and acceptance because they are at peace with their full range of emotions. They become examples of light born from truth. So some keynotes that might guide you to work with agrimony would be: the person hides anxiety or sorrow behind a bright, humorous, agreeable mask, dislikes conflict or disharmony, seeks to keep peace at all costs, may turn to busyness, socializing, or even substances to escape discomfort, suffers in silence, avoiding honest expression of worry or fear, appears cheerful outwardly while inwardly feeling restless and alone. The potential for transformation would be finding inner serenity that does not depend on outward circumstances, the ability to face and integrate difficult emotions with honesty and courage. Genuine peace replaces forced cheerfulness. Laughter becomes more natural, allows for more healing, brings lightheartedness that arises from authenticity and not from avoidance. So we're going from hidden pain to inner peace with this remedy. All right, so the next remedy that we're going to talk about is Centauri. And I kind of see this as just that overall archetype of the people pleaser, which I think so many of us fall into when we're kind of growing up into ourselves. We, especially maybe in the high school and things, we just really want to be liked, and or we want a certain job, and so we kind of just do what others might expect of us, even if inside we actually don't want to do those things. So the core emotion here is submissiveness, people pleasing, and difficulty asserting one's own will. So Centauri is for those who give easily and generously, often at the expense of their own energy and well-being. These souls are kind and helpful. They're very sensitive. They are eager to be of service, and they love keeping the peace. But deep down, their desire to please may cause them to lose their own center. So when in this state, the person might find it hard to say no. They might allow others to kind of dominate or take advantage of them. And I was reading that because we talked about Heather earlier, that the Heather state can definitely kind of target these people and dominate them and make them kind of put them in like that victim place.
Okay.
So they're like very susceptible to that other type as far as, being kind of weak-willed. Their natural empathy becomes overextended, which then leaves them very tired, unfulfilled, and deep down a little bit resentful. Yeah. So like they're saying yes, but inside they're screaming no. And over time that's going to cause some dysfunction. I don't feel like anyone can actually like stay in this state very long, because it's going to turn into you just blowing up. Right. It might like become the Holly state, which we'll talk about. So Centauri helps restore balance between giving and self-respect, and it strengthens the inner will so that compassion can flow from choice and not just from compulsion, but just because you like to say yes to people. So the unbalanced Centauri state, the individual feels invisible or easily controlled. They may overwork, overcommit, or remain in unequal relationships out of fear of disappointing others. Their self-worth becomes tied to their usefulness. They confuse love with servitude. And this pattern can often stem from a deep longing to belong, to feel needed or valued. Yet, by constantly yielding, they are disconnecting from their own strength and purpose. And, over time, this can lead them to depletion. And they can be of service in more useful ways if they're balancing that with their own self-respect and making sure that they are receiving as much as they're giving, and really putting themselves in relationships where their energy is being reciprocated and they're being fulfilled too. So that's really important for these types. When harmonized, Centauri brings quiet strength and discernment. The person continues to help others, but now they're doing this through awareness and balance. They can say yes or no from a place of integrity rather than just feeling pressured or guilted into something. This inner shift allows for transformation from passive obedience into more empowered service. So their compassion begins to gain depth because it's actually guided by their inner wisdom, their inner yes. So some keynotes for this one is kind, eager to serve, anxious to please, yet easily dominated or taken advantage of, finds it difficult to say no, fearing rejection or conflict. Often used by stronger personalities, gives energy away without replenishment. Lacks boundaries between one's own desires and others' expectations. Outwardly mild and dutiful, inwardly weary or resentful. So the positive potential here is inner strength and self-respect balanced with a sincere wish to serve. Gives help freely from love, not compulsion. Clear sense of individuality and purpose, able to say no without guilt. Becomes a channel for gentle yet powerful service through personal integrity. So we're moving away from servitude to or towards self-empowered service.
Yeah.
So doing it more directly and from a place of like that desire and not just social pressure or.
Right. I wish that I was a little better at saying no sometimes. So that's definitely one that I should keep handy. I don't struggle with it too much, but I do. It is hard to say no sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with this more when I was younger. And I have some friends that I think they're in a point where they're starting to question this even without the essence. Like they're tired and they start to feel like they've been taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's a boundary problem. Like, and I have been saying no a lot more.
Yeah.
As an adult.
Yeah, you're telling me. I'm
Well,
kidding.
it's just if I say yes to something that I inherently feel a no, I'm just depressed about it. I get anxious about like going to the thing just because I agreed.
Yeah.
So lately, and sometimes instead of saying no right out of the bat, I'll just sit with it a little longer and be like, do I really want this? And I give myself time before I schedule things.
I think that helps a lot. If you just right out of the gate give an answer, you're probably more likely to say yes or be put on the spot.
Right. And in that moment, that person's enthusiasm, especially if they're a manipulator and they thrive off of using other people's energies, then they're good sellers. So you're easily like susceptible to like buying things you probably don't need and, volunteering for events that you actually don't give a shit about. So some people can really sell it. And if you're a yes person, then you can be a victim to that.
Right. And you're not giving yourself enough time to really feel the way that your body and spirit are reacting.
Right.
You said, because if you sit with it for a little while, maybe you get nauseous or you just don't feel right in your body. And that's you reacting and being like, no, this is a no.
Right.
You should not say yes to this. And so, but if you don't give yourself time to feel that and see, because maybe when you sit and feel with it, you start to get excited.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, okay, yes, I should do this. This is something I want to do.
Yeah.
But if you just jump right at it, you're not going to have that time to really feel it out.
Right.
See how your body reacts.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next essence is walnut. And we kind of talked about this earlier with Inside Out too, like when she's moving as being maybe a really good essence for that as an example. It's very useful in times of change. And sometimes this change can be emotional points in our lives, but also biological. So things like teething in children is a big time of change.
Interesting.
Puberty, pregnancy, menopause, or even terminal stages of physical life when you're about to change into the other side, transition. Major change or major life events tend to bring increased stress. And with that, they also can kind of trigger this lack of inner stability. So walnut's going to be one to keep on hand. Like if you know you're about to move or you're about to level up in your job or you're about to do something totally different than that you've ever done. And you're anxious about that liminal space kind of in between, then walnut can be really good for that. So the core emotion is vulnerability to outside influences, difficulty adapting to change, and sensitivity to others' energy or opinions. So walnut is the remedy for times of transition when we are stepping from one phase of life to another and we feel uncertain or easily swayed by external forces. These souls are often clear about what they want, yet their sensitivity leaves them open to the influences of others' expectations and the other people's emotions and advice of others. So in this state, the person may hesitate to follow their own kind of intuitive guidance, feeling torn between their loyalty to old patterns and then the calling to this new phase or this new beginning. They may find it hard to break away from the past even when growth demands it. And I think we talked about pairing this maybe with a honeysuckle earlier. So in its unbalanced form, the walnut state manifests as oversensitivity or indecision during times of change. The person may feel confused, vulnerable, or easily thrown off by emotions or opinions of others. They may doubt their own readiness to leave what's familiar behind and fear judgment or loneliness as they move towards something new. Walnut reveals that this hesitation is not a weakness, but a sensitivity. And it's that sensitivity that actually becomes strength when it's aligned with their own inner truth. So this essence helps break energetic ties that keeps one bound to these outdated roles or these outdated beliefs, these other identities, these personas maybe that we've been, wearing, and help clear the way for transformation. When harmonized, walnut brings stability and spiritual protection. So the individual feels more anchored in their own vibration, and then they're able to move through change with more grace and confidence. They begin to listen to their own inner guidance rather than feeling like they have to seek, help or being influenced by something outside of themselves. So this remedy strengthens the bridge between the old and the new, helping us trust in our own natural evolution. The negative potential keynotes here would be sensitive and impressionable, easily swayed by others' opinions or emotional atmospheres, finds it hard to stay steady when entering new life phases or environments, may feel pulled between loyalty to the past and the call to new beginnings. They can lose their clarity of direction when surrounded by stronger personalities. The energetic field feels porous and lacking protective boundaries. The positive potential keynotes would be strong inner guidance and consistency through the change. Healthy energetic boundaries that allow openness without that vulnerability. Freedom to follow one's true path without the hesitation or interference of others. Serves as a link breaker, freeing the soul from outdated ties or influences. So we're moving away from that vulnerability towards a more steadfast alignment with our true self. So, it really is, it's about staying true to our own rhythm and really supporting ourselves through change, through growth, and feeling, I guess, more confident in our overall purpose. So, and the last remedy we're going to talk about today is holly. So the core emotion for holly is jealousy, envy, suspicion, anger, or feelings of hatred, potentially rage, and separation. So if you look at a holly plant, you'll notice it has the prickly leaves and it hurts
Yeah,
if they get you.
I've fallen into a couple.
Yeah. So that prickliness is a form of protection. It actually protects the plant from, animals eating away at it. And anytime we have that kind of spikiness in a remedy, which I think gorse also has this, it's a sharp reminder of something. So here it's the reminder to awaken the love from within. And the remedy is actually made from the flowers of the holly plant, not the spiky things, but we still consider all parts of the plant when trying to interpret. So holly is for those who feel cut off from love. They experience anger, bitterness, jealousy, or resentment when their hearts are wounded. So I think this gets kind of a bad rap because we just focus on the negative and we don't think about what led to that. Mm-hmm. And I really like the Body Maps book when it's talking about like the compensation process, because something led to this. I don't think that holly is one of those states that one is born with. I think it's created. So this essence speaks to moments when love's flow is blocked and we feel threatened, unloved, or unsafe in the relationships with others. So we put that protective spiky field up. When in this state, the heart actually contracts and the person may become defensive or mistrustful, reacting to imagined slights or fearing betrayal. Beneath these emotions, though, lies a longing for love and connection. The soul is aching to remember its own divine source of warmth. So holly helps us dissolve that emotional armor, restoring the heart's capacity to give and receive love freely. It brings us back to compassion, trust, and peace within ourselves. So with things like anger, even jealousy and envy, like these are natural feelings, right? These are very human emotions. And sometimes things like anger are very appropriate, so the key is just like knowing when it's unhealthy. We don't want to live in a state of anger.
Right.
And just because we feel jealousy, which is very normal, we don't want to stay there and just become jealous of everything. It feels so toxic. But when I was looking in the Julian Bernard book, there was a quote and it said, "The holly remedy may be given when others fail to have a desired effect. This is one of the catalysts which Bach recommended." So you might lean more towards holly versus, because we think of wild oat too, because he specifically says, wild oat when we don't know what the remedy is. So this is when you've tried a few and it like none of them are working. Sometimes giving holly will kind of remove a layer.
Interesting. Okay.
So to differentiate, holly would be for more active and intense personalities, where wild oat might be more desirable for weak and despondent kind of personality types. But both can be catalytic in that they really lift some heaviness off of the spirit, whether helping with redirection, like with wild oat, or here, maybe processing like where these feelings are really coming from. So in the unbalanced state, holly reveals the pain of separation, and the person may lash out, withdraw, or harbor feelings of jealousy or suspicion. These emotions, though uncomfortable, arise from the fear of losing love and the belief that love is limited or must be earned.
Okay.
This essence shows that love cannot truly be taken from us. It only becomes clouded when fear is obscuring our vision. When harmonized, holly opens the heart to unconditional love, and the person feels at peace within, and then they're able to celebrate others' joy and express kindness without effort. Holly helps to transform reactive emotions into calm understanding. It softens judgment and dissolves the barriers that are blocking our own empathy. The individual begins to trust again, realizing that divine love flows endlessly through all beings. So in the positive state, Holly radiates warmth, generosity, and spiritual grace. Their presence soothes others and invites harmony wherever they go. So it really is a spectrum here of that like love and hate. And, that's where the essences really help bring us back into balance. And I think Holly's hard because none of us naturally want to accept that we're in this state.
Right.
I don't want to be like, oh, I'm envious. I need some Holly. I might not want to admit that.
Yeah, some of these are tricky because they almost require self-diagnosis.
Right.
Or some serious admittance, at
Right.
least.
Right. Because in a consult, someone might not want to tell me that, they spent the last 3 years envious of every person around them. So,
Right,
that's the thing is Holly is for when the other remedies aren't working, because it might be kind of like a shadow aspect, more unconscious. Like they don't realize that they're acting like this because of that. So it might take a while. And I like the Body Maps book, which we could do a separate series kind of on that with the decompensation and compensation states, because this is showing how remedies kind of evolve over time. And like if they're not given at a certain time, then it kind of builds and becomes something else, right? Because we are compensating. So a remedy that's actually like Centauri might turn into Holly, right? Because they've been people pleasers for so long that now they're bitter.
Right, and they resent everybody.
And I can't remember if those two are in a family together, because they are like in families of 3, and I can't remember. But that's just naturally where my head's going as an example. But, it is important to recognize where we're at that time. And even if it doesn't seem like, oh, this is really taking away from my life, like if it's making you uncomfortable, if you're making decisions that, leave you feeling, like you've sold out or you haven't acted in integrity and things like that, those are like really good flags to like try to shift then before maybe it gets worse and worse. And now you're starting to like, not be as open and loving. Your boundaries are so heavy now, where before you might have struggled with lack of boundaries. Now you've put yourself in a tower and nobody can reach you. And now there's like loneliness and isolation. So you can see how it's important to address any kind of emotional disharmony as it's coming up, especially if it's a pattern. Now, sometimes you might just feel a little anger, jealousy, you move on because it's really not a state that's going to hold you too long. I think some people are more susceptible to lingering emotions than others. So,
Right.
All right. So keynotes for the negative potential here would be the person feels cut off from love, often reacting with defensiveness or emotional pain. They might experience jealousy, possessiveness, resentment, or wounded pride. They may lash out or close down when feeling misunderstood or betrayed. A deep longing for love and connection lies beneath the surface reactions. The heart's natural flow of warmth is blocked by fear of being hurt. And the positive potential in the more transformed state would be reconnection to unconditional love and trust in life's goodness. The heart opens again to forgive with compassion and understanding. Emotional turbulence transforms into radiant kindness and generosity. Love becomes a steady inner state, no longer dependent on outer conditions. So we're moving from a wounded heart into radiant love. So there's a lot of potential here if we can just, be open and accepting, like if this is the remedy.
Right.
So yeah, that wraps up this episode. And you can join us next time. We're going to move into part 3 for our Soul in Bloom episode, where we'll be exploring the remedies for despair, overcare, and spiritual integration, which is the final stage of Dr. Batch's healing journey.
Nice.
So definitely stay tuned to check out part 3. And if you are enjoying these episodes, let me know, because I might do another series on the body maps, which is a whole kind of separate thing, the different ways to use these remedies topically.
Yeah, that's been real fascinating to learn and see too.
Yeah.
We've had some examples of that working in our life.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of
really
mind
cool.
blowing.
Yeah, for sure. It's been fun. So, but anyways, thank you for coming back on the show and spending some time doing this with me today.
Of course. Yeah. It's been great to be a part of this series, and look forward to doing part 3 with you here soon. So thanks for letting me be part of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.